Welcome to Through the Trauma podcast. My name is Amber Larkins, published photographer, storytelling expert, visual artist, entrepreneur, speaker, and coach. This podcast was born from one question: how do I get inspiring stories of triumph out to the people who need to hear them the most? Come with me, enter my world, where lives are getting changed, heroes are getting developed, and greatness is being achieved. Hello and welcome to another episode of Through the Trauma podcast. I am Amber Larkins, your host, and today I have with me a very special guest, Miss Martina Grupo. Now, she is an author and she also has an amazing story of what she's gone through in a past relationship with a covert narcissist. She's going to get into all of this, share a little bit of her story, and tell about her experience walking through that, as well as going through bereavement and cancer. So excited to bring you on today, Martina, and talk to you. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Well, thank you for inviting me on. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, so narcissism is one of those things that's near and dear to my heart. I know lots of women that are suffering in the midst of narcissistic relationships, narcissistic abuse. And I really love and appreciate women coming on and sharing their stories, because I do think that this is one of those things that truly does help in a magnitude of ways. When women can start to speak up and share their stories, there's so much manipulation involved in these kinds of relationships. So I really appreciate you sharing with us today.
I wish I could say it was my pleasure. I'm not going to say it's my pleasure, but I'm in a way, in an ironic way, it is my pleasure to be, certainly to be chatting to you. And I think, yes, I couldn't agree more. It's such a solitary situation, people that find themselves and aren't aware of what they're actually going through. So, yeah.
It's not something you would wish on anybody or you would want to see anybody go through. However, I think it's beautiful when you can take a situation, whatever that trauma is, and having gone through it, can turn around and help other people through it after you've healed and you've got to a place of healing where you can turn back around and help other people. It's so needed. And unfortunately, I feel like it's a more growing concern in our culture. I don't know if I'm just starting to notice it more after having more guests on, or, having dealt with narcissism in my own personal life. But there's, I do believe that there's an increase I'm hearing about. So I think more people need to talk about this. Go ahead.
I think in the US, you're actually further ahead than the rest of Europe. So I live in Italy, and we're only catching on to what this is about now. Whereas I think in America, certainly in from what I've seen, it's been a thing for a long time now. You're aware of it, you know about it, there are books written about it. Whereas I think it's only in the last couple of years that it's become a thing here, which has an upside and a downside, because the upside is people are becoming more aware of it. But the downside is it feels to a lot of people like just another label for bad behavior. And for people who are within that situation, within a relationship, or it could be a friendship, it could be anything really, which involves a covert narcissist or some sort of abuse, or, we could even call it a form of coercive control. And I think when it comes down to that, it's far more than just, another label. I don't want people to have this idea that, all we're doing is just pinning a thing. He was a bit of an idiot. He did this, he did that, and 9 times out of 10, unfortunately, and I know there are females as well who are covert narcissists, but I think when you're in a relationship with a covert narcissist, it's so secretive. But for the person who's in that relationship with them, it's so shameful. And you're not even aware of what you're going through. So yeah, and I've just gone off on a tangent. I'm
No,
really
no.
sorry, but
No, no. I love it. I love it. And, this is something I have a friend, and she and I have talked extensively about this, but I do believe that it's so many people are quick to label. Like on one end of the spectrum, people are so fast to say, like, oh, my relationship went bad. He's a narcissist or she's a narcissist. And it's like, do you really know what that term means? Do you really, I mean, are they truly? I've had people tell me, like, my ex husband, my ex boyfriend, my ex whatever is a narcissist. And I'm looking at their situation like, I don't see it. Now, take that with a caveat, because a lot of times you don't see it. You don't know. They're very likable people in the public eye. It's at home when they're with their significant other, and that's the person that's getting the brunt of the abuse. So I do take that with a caveat, but I do feel like also it's a very overused label and term.
yeah,
And sometimes it's a bad thing when we label people that are not narcissists, because then it takes away the power of the word, which is when people truly are covert narcissists and they're on a scale. I read a book once, I can't remember the name of the book, but he talked about narcissism on a scale. So you have this, and I don't know if I necessarily agree with all of this, but he said there's like a scale of like 0 to 10 or whatever. And everybody has some level of narcissism. And he said that some level of narcissism is actually a good thing, like that you don't want to be too much on this end of the spectrum because that's bad. And you don't want to be too much on this end of the spectrum because that's like psychopathic. Like this is complete empath and this is complete psychopathic. And it's just like you want to be somewhere in the middle. The normal person is like a 4 or 5 or 6, but then you have the people that range in like the 8s, the 9s, and the 10s, which are like complete 100% psychopath, is what he calls it. It's just interesting because I'm like, those are the people that are like causing the harm. I feel like the ones that are in those like 8, 9s, and 10s, or extreme narcissism. But yeah, I'd love to hear what your thoughts on that.
I think to a certain degree, a healthy person has an element of narcissism about them. You could even say that going out and doing your own thing you could be accused of being narcissistic, which is where I think that's where the eye rolling and the, yeah, it's another label. I think that's where that comes from. And that's why when I found out what had actually been happening to me slowly over more than a decade, and I just thought, gosh, what's that end of the spectrum is so different from what I've experienced, because the textbook behavior of a covert narcissist is very easily identifiable. Once you're in it,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And well, I didn't know, it was pointed out to me. But like you just said, it's very strange, isn't it, when somebody says, oh yeah, my ex-boyfriend or my ex-husband was a narcissist. And I always take a really deep breath and say, oh, okay, how do you know? Because it took me a long time to pinpoint what was actually going on in my life before I realized that it had a name, that it had a disorder, that it was it was somebody that the whole thing was built on a bed of lies. That this person that I had been with and loved and trusted for the second time in my life for over a decade that the whole thing that I had believed was actually happening. That all of our story, our marriage, our relationship, everything had been built on a foundation of sand, if you like. And none of it was true. None of it was real.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we'll talk later about why and how I started the whole healing, if you like. And I still
Yeah.
think I'm a work in progress. But 11 years with somebody, let me just put it this way: I've got a really good work ethic. I am dynamic in terms of finding work. I speak lots of languages. I'm constantly branching out and finding other things that I can possibly do. And I met him again, and we were together for 11 years. This was my second chance at the first love of my life, put it that way, you know. So this was my knight in shining armor. He was the most amazing thing. Finally, I had somebody who I deserved, which is ironic. And he came back into my life and capitalized on the fact that I thought, I am not going to let you go this time. You know, this time I'm going to do everything I possibly can to keep us together. In 11 years, I think he worked one total. And that really sort of, you know, puts it out there about how incredibly manipulative and deceptive, but also how devious, I'm not going to say clever because he wasn't clever, but how devious he was about changing a situation into making me believe that it was entirely my fault that he wasn't working. He was the victim. He was the person who was unable to get a job because, I don't know, you know, when I look back now, he would project everything onto me. It was my fault. I was the one who was obsessed with money. I was the one who was obsessed with work. Well, I guess you are if you're the one doing all the working and doing all the paying for everything. So yeah, it was hard. It was really
Lots
hard.
of projection. That's lots of projection. And I think if you've ever been in a narcissistic relationship or you've dealt with a narcissist and you've done any amount of studying, there is terms that when I first learned these terms, I was like, what is that? You know, gaslighting or projection, or, you know, there's all these terms that describe things that they do, but it's so strange because it is textbook. Like some of the things, it's like, oh my God, when you discover this, and I want to get into your story too, because I think uncovering it that's part of the surprise, because for all years that you've been with this person or the amount of time that you've been with this person, a lot of times I think in most situations women will feel like, or men too, will feel like they are going crazy, or like they are defective, like something's actually wrong with me. Why am, you know, because that person flips everything around like it's your fault. But can you kind of describe maybe a couple of situations or experiences that you had where you first began to question, or you first began to see this is not normal and these are things that are happening that I'm not, that shouldn't be happening?
That's a great question. It's a really great question, and it's something that I've written a lot about, because I described it as looking back. When you look back at everything that's happened, it's as though you put the correct prescription glasses on. It's as though you can then see what's actually happening. So the phrases that you use, I mean, you go from the love bombing stage where you are the best thing since sliced bread. You are literally the be all and end all. That was my experience. And of course, because I'd known him when I was in my 20s, when I met him again, you know, when he contacted me again, I was just like, oh my God, this is my, you know, dream come true. And he is Italian, and he moved over to England to be with me the second time round. And you've asked me for examples. I can give quite a few to begin with that you know, he wouldn't learn English, or he learnt only the very minimum of English. And when we went out or we were around other people, made a really big thing of the fact that I was bossing him into learning English. So my desire for him to learn another language and be comfortable and be happy and achieve employment in my country was turned around into me being obsessive, too teachery, too bossy, too controlling, and too impatient. So I sort of sat back and thought, God, what an awful person I am, trying to make him speak English when he's not ready. That's just, you know, one example. Another one is carrots and peas. You ready for this? At home, we had, you know, I would cook an awful lot, but only what he wanted to eat. And sometimes we were invited out for dinner. Now, I knew that he hated, carrots and peas. We would go out for a dinner to some friends of ours who couldn't wait to see or meet this person and thought he was so gorgeous and so Italian and so exotic. And they would serve up carrots and peas, and he would eat them and say how delicious everything was. And I would be looking at him thinking, but you don't like this stuff, and as an adult, you don't have to eat what you don't like. You are free to choose. And he would just say in front of everybody, no. And my friends started saying to me, leave him alone, let him eat whatever he wants to eat. So automatically you become the bad guy, and you become the person who's trying to control something that you're not. That was awful. That made me feel, I don't know. I know that everybody in dating and in every kind of scenario, when you meet somebody new, talks and overuses the phrase red flags. Okay, we're all talking all of the time about red flags. There were hundreds. If I look back now, I can see how many red flags there were. If I tried to do a flicky-uppy eyeliner thing, which I wasn't very good at doing because, for one reason and another, I've never been great at putting makeup on. But, he would come over and just flick away the makeup, saying, he would use his thumb to sort of go, oh, you've got eyeliner there, oh, that's better. It's that sort of tiny thing that somebody who you live with and you love and you would do anything for, you then assume that that person is just looking out for you. And when you're not 100% grateful, you're the one who feels bad.
Mm-hmm.
I describe so many different situations, right till the very end, the devalue stage. The devalue, because you start with the love bombing and then gradually they start to pick bits off you. That's not quite right. Oh, your hair, no, you need to cut it shorter at the back. Otherwise you look like an old lady. It's, but always said with a smile, always done with an almost caring attitude.
This is the thing that I think people don't realize, but should. A lot of times when you are in a narcissistic relationship, it's not one thing. I can attest to this myself. There was times in my relationship where I felt like I would tell people like, oh, this happened. And it just, even retelling it was like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. I'm just overreacting. Like, I'd even have people tell me like, you're just overreacting. But what people fail to realize is that it's a combination. You described it so perfectly when you said it's a nitpick. Years of nitpicking and just pulling you apart. It's like chipping away at you to the point that you get to feel extremely worthless.
Exactly that. I didn't feel as though I was any sort of a priority. I mean, he did things for me because that's how they keep you. Again, it's another expression, and I'm sorry for using one that's, particularly connected with narcissism, but trauma bonding. So many people who've read my book have said to me, oh my God, how did you put up with it for so long? It's like a form of cult brainwashing. When somebody behaves that way to you, yet looks at you and says, oh, I just want the girl that I started seeing again, and smooths your cheek, you're like, what is wrong with me? Why am I making this person's life so difficult? I need to try harder. I need to do better. I need to do more. Yet every single time I did anything, I was always left feeling ever so slightly as if I just missed the mark, as if I hadn't, I don't know, I'd book a holiday somewhere. I described this as well. This was unreal. I would book a holiday and I'd be so excited that I'd got the money together to be able to go away. He never paid for anything, ever. He never had any money. And if I queried that, oh, how can you make me feel bad about not having any money? You know how bad I feel, and I did this and I did that. But it wasn't, so it would literally be turned back around to me. And the holidays, and I'd be like, oh yeah, we're going away. Oh, when are we going? Oh, Saturday, really really early in the morning, because we have to get the flight at that time. Well, we can rule out that day then, can't we? And when are we coming back? And then I would say another day that we were coming back. Right, okay, so then we've got to get to the airport, so we can rule out that day. So basically we've got 5 days away. And I would look at him and say, well, maybe you could check out flights and stuff. And he was like, yeah, I would, but you're just so controlling.
Projection, again, projecting that onto you. But this is what they do. They will project onto you the things that they do. So if you're in a relationship with a narcissist and they're telling you, oh, you're cheating on me. No, they're cheating on you. You can, it's almost, you can almost bet it to the T. If they're telling you you're crazy, you're jealous, they're crazy and they're jealous. If they're they mirror. That's another telltale sign of narcissism, is they mirror you. So this is why sometimes these relationships can be very fake and feel very like you said earlier, built on sand, because you are kind of dating yourself. You're kind of dating during the love bombing stage. They're finding out all these things about you, all the things that you love, the things that drive you, you're passionate about. And then they begin to mirror that. And it seems like a match made in heaven.
Can I also just interrupt you?
Yes.
You've just said the really positive thing. Beginning, they're mirroring you and they're taking all the positives. They're also taking every single weakness, every confession, everything that you feel slightly inferior about, and they're storing that, because at a later date that will be brought out to savagely, verbally attack you with. You've never wanted to be with a man. You've never wanted to do anything except work. You've never wanted, a real relationship. You just do. Oh my goodness, there were so many times where I was just thinking, this is all my insecurities being slapped around my face. And it was just, oh my goodness, it was awful. Well,
throughout as well, like throughout the relationship, when you would have these like heart to heart talks of like, now you as an empath are usually saying your emotions, you're saying what you feel, like, this is what I want in a relationship. These are the things that I struggle with, because you're an empath and you don't care to talk about the things that you struggle with. And they take those things, and in the very next time, or on the very flip side of the coin, they're like, oh, but you're this. Oh, and it's like the very things that I said I struggle with. Oh, but you're this. Yeah, I know. I said that I struggle with that. And it's like, oh yeah, but I saw that too. Because, that's why you get yourself in these situations. That's why, they use it against you. And they do whatever it takes to paint a narrative that they want. So whatever it is that they want, they will use whatever tactics, manipulation, mirroring, whatever it takes to paint that narrative and to make you believe that they're right and you're wrong.
Gaslighting is one of the most frightening things ever, because that's when you lose and when they start gaslighting you, that's when you start to lose your sense of self. And then really, it's not just that the devalue stage has been completed. Now they're well on their way to the discard, because by gaslighting you in the background, what you don't or aren't aware of is the fact that you are trying to hold it together mentally. They're busy destroying you with, here we go with another one, all their flying monkeys, all the people that feel sorry for them, all the people that listen to them, all the people that they esteem. for want of a better word, because it's all very, very empty. What narcissists do, they don't really esteem anybody unless they can use them. But all these people that they hold up, they are knocking you down, not to your face, especially here in Italy, because obviously these people see you, or they see you out for lunch, or they, oh, hi, how are you? And I mean, I can see, he was in the background, sort of, yeah, she's not quite right, something wrong. I don't know what's going on. She's losing it.
Well, and
All the
here he's playing the victim. Here he's
Yeah.
probably playing the victim. Like, oh,
Oh,
I'm so concerned about Martina because she's doing XYZ and I'm so concerned about her. And when reality, he's painting a narrative about you to your friends.
exactly. Now, this could be to get his next supply. This could be in order to enable him to have as many sexual experiences as he wants or he needs or anything else. But what he will be doing is painting me as the person that is the worst, most hysterical, a lesbian, drug addled, alcoholic. Honestly, you name it, I've been called them all. And that's what he wants, so that everybody else can then go, oh my God, yeah.
Well, he's the victim. He gets
Yeah.
patted on the back like, oh, so sad that you're having to put up with that.
Yeah.
And it's a horrible place. It's the most lonely place I think that a person can be in. If you've been single and you've been lonely, that is nothing compared to being in a relationship with someone who is a narcissist.
Oh my God, that's so true. That's so true. There is nothing lonelier than being in a relationship where you don't matter. And I didn't matter for so long.
And you're not allowed to share your feelings, your thoughts. You're not allowed to share any of that, because every time you do share it, you get painted back in a corner. You're a shitty person because you did this thing.
I'm going to ask you if you found this familiar. Oh, is this familiar to you? Oh, are we doing this again? Really? Are we doing this again?
Mm-hmm.
Is that?
And you always do this. Oh, you never do that. I always want this, and you never do. It's like absolutes. They speak in these absolutes. And it's like, at the end of the day, it's like, how do I can't even share with you my feelings, because everything I share begins to get twisted around to be my fault. I'm painted out in your narrative to be this shitty person. Like, I'm better off to retreat into my little hole all alone by myself in this place of loneliness that I've built this wall. I mean, it's just a very bad place to be in. And this is a type of abuse that I've never been physically abused, so I can't speak on that. But I can say that when someone starts to mess with your mind, they start to paint and make you believe that you really are problematic. You're the problem.
Okay, well, I can actually say that I was, not by him, but when I was in my late teens, I was physically abused. So I can say that categorically did not do me. I mean, I know it was much longer term, so I'm not taking anything away from people who are in a long-term physical abusive relationship. I can't think of anything more horrific. But this, the after effect of this, I mean, I'm out 2.5 years, and I can promise you I am still a work in progress. This is not a breakup. This is not me walking away from somebody I didn't get on with. This is so deep. The mental abuse runs so deep. I mean, I will talk to you afterwards about something far more positive, in a second, and how I've worked my way through to getting over this. But I liken it to cutting a tree down and looking at the rings around that tree so that you can tell how old it is. Well, those rings run deep in me. When I'm not sure about something, or I'm, and I do. Of course, you have bad days where you cry or, you feel as though, I mean, still, it's really hard to explain. It's really difficult to explain. I feel like I was one of the lucky ones because I got out,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I
and and you got out, and
I got out because it wasn't necessarily like I was very blessed because in my situation there was cheating involved. When I found out, I said I was very angry, obviously, because for years there had been a level of religion, like control through religion, and I was shocked. Like this was not what we believed, and then I found out of this affair, and I'm like, "Don't come back, don't don't come back," and he didn't. He never did. He never tried. And at first, it was really hard for me. I struggled and I cried and I wondered what's wrong with me. I dealt with a lot of self like reflection, but looking back now, I look back and I thank God so much every day that I was never, because I hear situations of other women where they constantly want to come back and the love bombing starts all over again. And then it's like you just hope, you so desire this kind of thing of when it first started, and you'll do anything to get that back. I never had that option. And so I was blessed in that regard. Looking back now, I'm really blessed in there. But
oh, mine would have, mine would have, he would have had me back in a second if I had accepted what he was doing. It was me. I didn't even know what he was when I left. I just knew there was something really wrong, really wrong. And I just knew I had to leave. I think it took him about 10 months, and the most recent woman that he was seeing had left him. And then he tried to contact me via somebody else. I was just, it was the one remaining thing of a narcissist that he claimed there was something wrong with him. And I had this message that he wanted to meet because it was a health situation. And I said, because I grey rocked him from the moment I left, I wanted nothing to do with him. And I just said, well, I hope he takes some painkillers. I've no desire. And he hates me. He hates me with, yeah, I know that because, I'm just not interested. I have zero interest. I would like to leave Italy because there are too many memories here. I don't mean good memories. I just mean that I can't move on. I can't. I want to move forward. I want to move away from this whole thing. I don't want to see anywhere that has any kind of connection. I don't even want to speak the language anymore.
This is something too that I feel like coming out of an abusive relationship, especially one like you described, which runs really deep, the roots, it's very rooted in you, and it takes so many years getting over this. I don't think I'm over it. I don't know that I'll ever get over it. It changes you as a person. I don't think that you ever come back and you're not the same person anymore. You're hyper vigilant of like red flags. You're hyper vigilant of people in general. I mean, like I've become, I still feel like I'm an outgoing person, but inside, like about the sensitive issues, I'm very, I'm very protective. I protect my heart because it's so hard to venture out.
But do you find that can come across sometimes as almost being defensive, diffident? I've been accused of that, but I can't do anything about that because otherwise I open myself up to everything else. I can't date or even entertain the idea of seeing anybody. But by what you just spoke about is a form of protection. But that form of protection also means that then you don't trust because they took that away.
I know. Yep. And I go back and forth in my own mind. Like how much of this is a level of like I'm strong and I won't allow this to happen again. I set boundaries and I stand by those. Like, am I there? Or how much of that is this scared little girl that's like, I'm scared. I'm scared to get back involved because subconsciously, and I've often wondered this with myself, subconsciously, is there something inside of me that looks for something wrong every time I meet someone new? Like, I had a guy ask me this. He said, I think you find something wrong every time you meet somebody. And at first, I'm like, no, that's not true. But then I dwelled on it because I always like to think through things. And I'm like, I might. And I don't know. It might be a subconscious thing that I do that I don't know. I just know
But
that
then, I don't know.
I want to just say this. I know that when you come out of a relationship like that, there is this web of deceit and lies. It's all built on this. It's built on nothing, and it's like such a web of like confusion that undoing that is so hard, and it takes a long time. But I will say this for people who are listening, because I honestly feel this way too, that all things can be used for good if we allow them to, and if we find we have the correct perception going into those things. So I do believe this as well. Like, even if that web of confusion, and I'm still trying to maybe undo some of the web of confusion that still resides in my mind, I often think too, this has made me I wouldn't have this podcast if I didn't go through the things that I went through. I wouldn't be able to help other women struggling in these situations. Like, I wouldn't be nearly as thoughtful about things or as cautious moving through things. So I don't know that I gained a lot of great things from it too. I wouldn't wish it on anyone, but I also find the positive in the negative situation that I went through.
I think that's really admirable. I really do. I think, congratulations on finding something where you're finding a way through that awful web, because that's exactly what it is. I can't say I found it quite like that, because it's been really tough. And I've also been shafted quite a few times since then, not in relationships, but in working situations where people have, because you always hope, don't you, that the next person is going to be different. And when they say, trust me, you just, you stupidly assume that they're being real. Or certainly in my case. And, I had a lot of builders working on my house, and I really, there were a lot of problems with that. Really, a lot of people deceive me. And each time I thought, no, I'm not going to let this happen again. God, I must be so naive, because each time, 2 or 3 times it happened, but they came back in, and, another group would come back in. Oh, no, we'd never do that. We would never, take you for a ride or do the work badly or anything else. I mean, I'm just using builders now. It makes you trust less. Mm-hmm. It really makes you trust less.
Would you consider yourself an empath?
Yes. Well, I was. I don't know if I am anymore. It's really hard to say whether or not. Yes, I think I am. I like people, and if an empath means caring about people, yes. But there's a huge difference now.
Mm-hmm. So,
go on.
I was just going to say, I've really thought through this myself, and I can offer you something here. When I first come out of my relationship and I scoured, like, I wanted to learn as much about narcissism, because someone mentioned it to me. They're like, he's a narcissist. And I was like, what is that? Somebody's got an ego. And so I just go and start looking it up. And then I seen, okay, oh my God, there's other people that are this way. I'm not crazy. Other women have gone through this. And that's where I discovered it myself. And then I started learning about empaths and how narcissists a lot of times attach to empaths. And I said, am I an empath? And I thought that was negative, like a negative term. And I began to feel like I don't, I would pray. I'm a Christian and I'd pray and I'd ask God, like, why did you make me an empath? I don't want to be an empath. Why did you make me this way? And I heard God so clearly tell me, this is a gift, Amber. I give you a gift. Being an empath means that you love people, you care about people, you wear people's feelings, you feel their feelings. That is a gift that I've given you to be able to love the world and to love people in the world. And I, the only issue with that is that you have to learn how to use that. It's a superpower, but you have to learn how to use it through boundaries, through, being able to put like walls up around people that are deceptive, and being able to recognize manipulation and deceit and all these things. So for me, it was like, once I discovered that, I could fully be me. I could fully be that empathetic person that I was. And it wasn't a negative thing anymore. It was actually a very positive thing. And knowing that narcissists thrive on empathetic people because they want to be that. They can't be that. They struggle to be that. That's why they mirror you. That's why they want to twist everything around like it's your fault. They absorb your energy. And
A narcissist is empty.
They're very
Fundamentally,
empty.
a narcissist is completely void of everything. They have no feelings. They don't know how to do the whole loving and caring about people. So going back to your, describing the mirroring, they're looking to you as a person who, and let's use another word instead of empath, people pleaser. I've grown up being a people pleaser. Okay. I have always put people first. That's been the way that I was brought up in my family. That's been the way of my situation as the oldest child. I'm only one of two, but it was me who gave up toys. It was me who had to set the table. It was me who had to cook. And that was fine. It wasn't a problem. But what that taught me, unfortunately, was that everybody else was more important than I was.
Yep.
And that's when being an empath can lead to a sort of auto destruction, because what you then do is you make sure that everybody else is happy while you're sacrificing yourself. So when I grew up, and I'm older than you are, but I grew up with the idea that women were not allowed to put themselves first. Okay? Because by putting yourself first, you were being selfish. She's gone to such and such a place. Oh, well, that's all right for her. No, actually, that's not okay. Because if you don't look after yourself, then you are never going to value yourself. It's not being selfish. By doing what you want to do shouldn't make you feel guilty. And that's where boundaries come in as well. But the first thing that you need to do is stop bending yourself over to such a point that you can't actually stand up for yourself. That's what I would say.
Oh, you're right on. And I think I'm glad you said that too about the people pleasing, because I was that way too. Naturally, innately, I think that's innately inside of them. Empathetic people. You are a people pleaser and you want everyone to like you because you have this connection with people and you want to be liked. But I think navigating through it, you have to just learn, and not you, but just in general, like people that are empathetic have to just learn. You have to learn those boundaries, and you have to know, like, I can give so much of myself, but I also have to nurture and love myself enough. Like I can record episodes of this podcast, but I do feel people's feelings. Like when I sit with some people and their episodes bother me for weeks sometimes, but I have to know where to like compartmentalize in a sense to where I can be there and be strong for that person. But I also have to come back into my safe space with, people that are going to lift me up and things that are going to lift me up. Yeah.
Do you know, I had a friend that once said to me, I think she said no, or something. She, she not disagreed. I don't have a problem with people disagreeing, but she said no, that she couldn't do something. And I was really put out by the fact that she had refused to do this thing. And I just thought, wow, that's, and I remember thinking at the time, again, how selfish. And she said to me, you need to stop expecting everybody else to do the same thing that you do.
Mm.
And it's so true. If you lower your expectations of what you think people should do, and here's something that I've learned, raise your expectations about what you think you deserve. So if you think that you're going to get that validation from somebody because, that they didn't call you, or they should have called you, or they should have been on hand to help you or something, if you lower those expectations right down, but raise your expectations about what you should be doing for yourself, then I know it's like brain training, but then things should change.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not selfish to look after yourself, and it's not selfish to put yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that I'm only learning in the last few years.
Yeah.
2.5 years.
I think that, like what we're talking about here, and this is kind of to those of you who are listening, is people that are empathetic. Like, obviously you have people that take this out of context and they're like, oh, it's just the world is all about me because I got to put myself first. And all we're saying here is that there's boundaries that need to be put into place, and there's balance. There should be a time that we go out and give to other people, but there should also be a time of reflecting and energizing ourselves back up to be that strong person, to be able to go out and give and do the
100%.
things. And I do have this question for you. I'm going to shift gears for just a moment, because I've often wondered this, and I'm curious your thoughts. But have you done any reflection, or just kind of thinking through, like, what actually happens in the mind of someone who is narcissistic that makes them this way? Do you think that they are naturally this way? Do you think that it's childhood trauma? Or what do you think makes someone this way? I'm just curious your thoughts.
I think there are several different ones. Like you, as soon as I was told that he might be one, I did every kind of research you can imagine. And I didn't just look on forums or memes or things like that. I dug up psychological papers. I really went through the whole, research to find out, because I just couldn't believe that this was a thing. I just, it was so alien to me that this had happened to me, because I'm a fairly strong, feisty, determined individual. Like, how could I have been so stupid? How could I have not seen it? And one of the papers that I read, a psychological paper, talked, and it was like reading his autobiography. It really was. It was unbelievable. The childhood thing is where they close off, because a child needs nurturing. And this is what I learned about. And you need to be nurtured as a child, whether you're in an abusive home or whether you're in overly protective parents. There's, both extremes are fairly inconsistent, let's say, with bringing up a balanced child. Okay, I am not a child psychologist, so please don't quote me on any of this, but this is just what I have learned. And you need to be there for the child. And sort of, I don't have any children, unfortunately, but I can't say that he was neglected or abandoned. But he created a sense of entitlement around himself. And I think that this comes from the fact that he wasn't nurtured. he was treated in a sort of a different sort of way. And I have a great relationship with his older sister, and she's, pretty okay. There's no issue. She's raised a daughter. So to answer your question, yes, 100%. It's a childhood thing. It's how they are raised from birth. And the actual science behind it talks about the fact that they block off the empathetic part of their brain.
Because they don't want to be hurt.
I don't know if they do that physically or if it's the thing that's underdeveloped over time, but that's taken off. But please, I can't be sympathetic to it. Not in the same way that I can. I don't think having put up with so much cruelty from that person and watched the way they use people, used me, used others that are very, very close to me, I have no sympathy. Does that make me a bad person?
No. And I've thought through this a lot as well. And I agree with you. I do. I have very similar thoughts as to like why they're this way and why it's a generational curse. Like it happens, a lot of times one of the parents is that way and then the kid becomes that way, or one of the siblings become that way. And then it's a generational curse. And how do we break that? I do have children. And so I try to think, I do the best I can be as a parent, but I try to look at like, what can I do to nurture and foster a healthy childhood for them? But going back to this whole thing, how I feel like there is moments that I feel sympathetic, but it's not, we all have trauma. And I think from doing this podcast, I can honestly speak to that I speak to so many people. Everyone has some level of trauma in their life. What we do with that trauma is what truly makes us happy. It's what makes us good, better people. It makes us grow, like a growth mindset. It makes us become who we're truly designed to become. So going back to someone who is a narcissist, it's like, does it make me sad that you probably have some childhood trauma, some neglect, some abandonment, some things that, like you said, I agree with you 100%. Something didn't develop there. I feel sorry for that. But what I don't feel sorry for is that everyone has a choice. When you get to a certain age and stage in your life, you have a choice. You could go get therapy. You could go get help. You could go and say, hey, you know what? Every relationship I'm in, I burn through it like a box of matches. Therefore, something might be wrong with me. I mistreat people. I leave everybody completely energy deflated when I do leave them. Like, you have to notice these things, right? You have to notice that it's not everyone else. So at that point, you have a decision. You have a choice. I'm not going to sit, personally, I don't want to sit and wallow in this victimhood. I want to become a better person and grow and become who I'm created to be. So the things that I dealt with as a child, I need to go get worked through, so I can become that.
You can't be happy if you don't invest. You can't, and whether that's emotionally or financially or, just by working, you can't. It just doesn't work. Your happiness comes from a feeling of contentment, not even happiness. A feeling of satisfaction comes from when you do something, when you're proud of what you do. They don't have that. They don't invest in anything. They are empty.
Yeah.
And, God, I feel sorry for him. I feel sorry for him. Because I know that it will carry on. It's not something that he's going to stop because I walked out 2.5 years ago. He's been like this forever. I was just stupid enough to get back involved with him for the second time. That's what beggars belief, really.
They become
Anyway,
happy. It's like a way of life. I think that it's comparative to, like, you've heard people that go to prison for years, 20, 30 years, and then they get out of prison and then they're like, I don't even know what to do with my life. I just really want to go back to prison. And I think that it's similar. Like, they
do
are
you?
in their own, yeah, I think they live in their own hell. I don't think that they're happy. I don't think that they can be happy. But yet they get these little dopamine hits of like control. That's why they constantly need narcissistic supply. That's why they constantly need more of something. It's like, if I'm a drug addict, I've got to constantly be hitting the drugs to keep getting that dopamine hit. If
See,
if
I
I'm a,
think that,
if I'm a
sorry, I
drug
was going to
addict,
say,
I'm just going to say, I'm like, if I'm a drug addict, I'm not happy. I'm happy when I'm catching those little hits of like high,
whatever.
but then overall, like, you can't be happy, and that's what I think. It's very much similar. That's all they know, and that's
No, you're right. You're right. And actually, I wasn't sure about the prison analogy, but yeah, I kind of see that. And I've always said that he's like a magpie. You know, the way the magpie jumps around to and collects shiny, sparkly stuff. And I think he spent most of his life doing that, collecting things that, appearance wise, it all looks good, Oh, do you know what? I'm really sorry, Amber. I'm done with kind of trying to work out why he is the way that he
mhm.
is, because I think it's, that's up to him and the poor girl who he's with now, because she is only going to go through it again. That's why I don't feel any jealousy. I don't feel any envy or anything. Just how awful to be so empty.
Yes. And I think you're at a place too. Like, there's a process, and I think that early on, coming out of something like that, you're undoing a lot of feelings that you had. Like, there's lots of feelings of resentment, feelings of being held back, feelings of being held prisoner. Really, I mean, you become a prisoner in your own house, where you're not allowed to share your feelings. You're not allowed to have a thought. You're not allowed to share your thought. You're definitely not allowed to voice your thoughts. And it's coming out of that, it takes years to heal
Yeah.
from it. And again, I don't know if you ever fully heal from it. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. Maybe it's a good
Well,
thing
going
because
back going back to what you said before, you change, don't you? You
you
just
change.
change.
Hmm. Hmm.
You're a
But it
different.
doesn't always
Although,
have to be a bad thing, too. Changing doesn't have to be a bad thing. It all goes back to mindset and the perception, and unworking some of those mindsets that they've tried to, like, put into you for years. And it's a
yeah,
process, because when you're with someone constantly for 24/7, or like you're living with them constantly, and they're interjecting these little comments, they're going into it's like bullets, you're getting shot up.
yeah.
But I I do want I know we're getting close to the end of the hour, but I want you to talk a little bit about your book, and how people can get their hands on this book, because it is literally resources like this that help people overcome these kinds of situations. It
I'm
truly
so
is.
proud of my book. I'm so proud. Honestly, I can't. I did a year of therapy. I wrote a blog originally just to try and understand what I was going through. But the blog was spiky and angry, and a lot of it was written in hindsight. And when I finished it, I thought, okay, I pushed it away. And then somebody said to me, "Yeah, you need to write this as a book. You have to do this." And I settled down sort of last September and started writing it, and it was cathartic and painful and healing and everything else, and revealing. Actually, it was revealing, because writing about what had happened to me made me see really what had happened to me. It made me understand everything. It made me go back and in time and rewrite history as it should have been rewritten almost. I was able to see what had actually happened. I did do it for me, but I wanted to write something because I realized how many people out there think they're alone? And you must know this, that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of books and documents and videos and self-help, A to Zs of how to spot a narcissist. But there aren't very many books that actually say, okay, this happened to me. I'm holding my hand up. It's shameful, but this is exactly what happened from start to finish. So the book is available on Amazon, because I know we're getting to the end of our hour. We have chatted loads, haven't we? The book is on Amazon, and it's also available on Kindle, and I'm so proud of it. I love it. I really do. Yeah. So also I'm on Substack, which is a writers forum in the US. So I do a lot of stuff on there, which ties in with something that I want to end with. Okay, but I'll let you lead into that.
Well, I do just want to say this. You just touched on something that's so powerful, which I have said and will continue to say, is that sharing our stories that's our power. And that is truly our superpower, because people are coming up behind that are going through these types of trauma that need your story to get through. And I love that your book shares your story. And I would encourage anybody that is in this kind of situation, or you even think, I mean, you can go back and listen to this podcast. You can hear all the words that we use to describe. There's so many terms that we used in this recording, and learn those. If you think you're in a relationship like that, learn those, because knowledge is power. And then knowing that you're not alone is it's a really good place to be when you feel so alone. So I would highly recommend Martina's book. Get that, read it. I need to get a copy of it and read it myself. Yeah, just because I'm fascinated by mindset, mind stuff anyway. So I'm fascinated with how people overcome these types of abuse and trauma. But yes, please give us your big takeaway here. I definitely want to hear kind of what you want to leave our audience with.
I have two parts to my big takeaway. Okay, so the first part is it's like an acronym. It is an acronym. It's not like an acronym. It is an acronym, which is AAB, which is when you're in or just out of a narcissistic relationship, the first thing you should do is acknowledge. Okay, acknowledge what you've been through. Acknowledge the fact that you have been with somebody who has not made you feel good in the most basic sense. Okay, because once you realize that, once you have acknowledged what's happened to you, then you can take the steps in order to move on. The second part is allow. Allow yourself to cry, mourn, dance and laugh. You're allowed to do all of those things. Allow yourself to look after yourself. Allow yourself to put yourself first, because you do matter. You really do matter. Okay? And the last part is the B part, which is build up that self-esteem. Build up that self-confidence, like bring it back to who you were before, because you can. We haven't disappeared. They haven't finished us off at all. And for anybody that has any doubts, and if there is anybody listening, and Through the Trauma is such a great name for a podcast, because on my Substack page, there is and I will send you the link, Amber, after this, and it's called Take the Photo, and it explains. I'm not going to explain now what it's about, but at the bottom of that is a video of me, and that video shows me 3.5 years ago, when I was almost at the end of that narcissistic relationship, going around this house, and you can see how brittle I am. You can see how empty I am. It's a very short video. And then the second part of the video looks like the lights have been switched on. And it's from July of 2024, this year. And it looks like it's been filmed in Technicolor. And it's just incredible. So this is what I would say, apart from my little acronym thing, which I made up. But turn that light back on because you deserve it. So find your light and switch it back on.
Oh, that's so good. So I need to drop the mic right there. That's so good. The only thing that I really want to add is in that first A that you gave. I think that is brilliant. The AAB, I love it. The only thing that I would add is that don't be afraid. If you're going through a situation like this, don't be afraid to call it what it is. It is mental, emotional abuse. For a long time, I felt really weird saying that. I felt like it's not really abuse. It's just it's just a toxic relationship. No, it is abuse. When someone does that kind of thing where they diminish your self-worth, it's abuse. So don't be afraid to, in the awareness stage, don't be afraid to be aware of what it really is and call it what it is. Because and not everybody can understand it. I promise you that. And people that label narcissists that aren't truly narcissists, they won't truly understand. It takes going through a situation like this, which I hope you never have to. But for those of you who have, it takes truly going through a situation like this to fully understand the depths and the web and the lies and all the things that you have to really deal with. So,
yeah.
Martina.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being so open and honest. And I truly believe that your story will impact so many people. Your book, yeah.
Sorry, I meant to say the book is called Hello Flower. I completely forgot to say that.
And that will be in the show notes as well. So if we did forget, it's not a big deal. But yes, her book is called Hello Flower, and go get it. Go get a copy of it. Go follow Martina. Are you on social media, Martina?
No, I try and stay off. I'm really sorry. I know that's not very contemporary, but yeah, I'm really not very good.
It's okay. It's okay.
But you can message me. If you want to message me, find me on Facebook and send me a message because I will help anybody. You
are on Facebook, so that's social media. maybe LinkedIn eventually, when your book starts making all those high sales on Amazon. But
let's just get the word out there. Let's stop this. Let's stamp it out.
Yes, for sure. Thank you so much for sharing with me and my audience today.
It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you for listening to Through the Trauma podcast. If you have found value in this episode or believe in the mission behind what we are doing, please subscribe so that you never miss any future episodes. Also, be sure to check out our transformation project at transformationthroughtraumaproject.com, where we help inspirational stories get heard on a larger scale through multiple platforms. If you know someone who can benefit from this episode, please share it with them. Until next time.